collaborate and listen. So another cold day, and you guys would have been in class today. We would have done a couple things. First of all, I'd have given you a little bit of information about the compare contrast essay, and then the second part, or about the next 3/4 of the class, you'd have spent working on your step outlines, which would have been handed in today. I will talk about that a bit later. But what I want to do is take a look at the compare contrast essay, and I wanted to build on the information, and I think you guys already have. So we'll do a quick review, and I'll give you a little bit more information about that, and we're going to be practicing it over the next couple weeks, because you will have a summative coming up, and like I said, it's going to be about 2 weeks. You guys still have a Friday class, so it will be about the 22nd of February. It'll be the 18th to the 22nd. And so we'll do a little bit of practice when you get back, but I want you to have this information just to start out, so that when we get back to class, we're not starting all over and trying to play catch up. One of the things when you have a compare contrast essay that you're trying to do is find some common ground. And you can't always find the exact thing to compare. So what you're trying to do is find some commonality or even some contrast. So one of the great ways to do this is with a Venn diagram. So, thinking about that compare contrast, here's your comparison. Here's your contrast. So when you're trying to organize ideas, one of the great ways to do this, to figure out what you've got, is to do the Venn diagram. The other thing you can do is you can do a T-chart. So you can look at pros and cons and establish, your list here, and then start to make some kinds of assumptions here and find out what you can talk about. This is just a couple of strategies, but you want to really do a lot more planning when you're writing a compare contrast essay, because if it goes wrong, it can go horribly wrong. And I was kind of liken it to a ping pong match, because it just feels like you're getting bounced from one topic to the next topic. So planning is really going to be a key part of what you do. And these two ideas are ways to plan and get your ideas in some kind of order. Keep in mind that one of the things you'll still do is you'll still be using claim data commentary. Claim data commentary is an analytical structure. So you will still be analyzing, so you still need to have some kind of claim statement, but now you've got two topics that you might be taking a look at, and you want data from both of the, in this case, texts that you'd be working with, and then you're going to have commentary for both. Okay, so there are really two fundamental ways of organizing your compare contrast essay. And sometimes you'll see some other variables, but they're really kind of, just variations on these two. So first of all, there's the subject by subject. And the second one is point by point. As I'm writing this down for you, I also want to be able to see this in your book. So please make sure it's in your copybook, so that when I come looking for it, I'll see that you have that information. Even if it is a little bit of revision for you, please have it down so that we can make sure that it really gets something that you can recall and use, because you will use it into DP. There are a couple of assessments that require you to write this particular structure. Okay, so when we take a look at subject by subject, it will look like this. These boxes are going to represent a paragraph. And so what you'll have is your first topic, A, will be about one particular text. So, for example, if you had paragraph 1 and we were writing about Pygmalion, then it would be all about Pygmalion. in the second body paragraph, you might be writing about Megamind. And so paragraph A, body paragraph 1 would be about Pygmalion. Body paragraph 2 is about Megamind. And also in this paragraph is where you'll do the compare and contrast, depending on what you're talking about. So it may be all comparison, it might be all contrast. And so you'll talk a little bit about Megamind, and then you'll move into the end of the paragraph. So very often B is a longer paragraph because it has the comparison. So one of the things that you want to take a look at is then when do you use the subject by subject and when don't you use it? First of all, the negatives is that the danger of using it is you end up kind of listing details, and so it just gets to be all data, no commentary. So one of the things you want to be able to watch for is that if you end up doing that, you just start listing a whole bunch of ideas and then you have that problem. It's also not a good choice when you're comparing the same thing. So if you're talking about metaphors, for example, then this isn't going to work. So it's not a very effective choice if you're comparing the exact same things. So when do you use it? Well, this is one of the advantages, and we just said that one of the negatives was it was detailed, but also one of the advantages is it can be quite detailed. So you can really focus on some of the specifics, and that's never going to be wrong. It's just you got to learn how to control that, how much detail you include. It's also really effective when you want to use B to compare with A. So B is being used to help illuminate the A topic. So in this case, then I'd be using Megamind to help me understand more about Pygmalion. So I might be talking about how society sees us, and how that can change how we view ourselves. So that's just one example. The second organizational structure we have is, and remember I'm doing each box is a paragraph, A and B. And you'll do that throughout the whole essay, comparing them point by point. So, for example, then you have something that's very similar, and that you can talk about easily in one paragraph. So, for example, you would talk about Pygmalion and Megamind, and it would be again all the way through. And so each one of these has to have its own topic sentence, exploring some aspect that can be compared. So let me just add this so it makes sense. So one of the dangers of using this point by point is that sometimes writers don't give equal treatment. And what I mean by that is that there might be more about A than there is about B. So, maybe you have 6 lines about the topic A, Pygmalion, and 2 lines about Megamind. So it's really trying to find that balance that there is equal treatment. The benefits of this is when you have a complex topic that you need to really take apart, this is a good choice. And if you have long comparisons, so you have to write a longer essay, this could work. I wasn't going to include this, but I've changed my mind. It's called the block. And basically, this is something you use when you get into DP. It's not really for short essays like you're going to be doing. But what you'll do is you'll take your two texts, for example, and you'll write about one text and then move to the next text. So they're really kind of separated, and they're not even really compared other than through a question. So, for example, a question in DP might be, discuss how childhood is explored in the two texts you studied in class. And so then they would talk about childhood in Mr. Vertigo, and then maybe childhood in Frankenstein. And they're not really comparing both of them, but they're talking about how an author would have written about both of them. So I just want to give you that information because as you head towards DP, this is, this information relates to what we're doing now, even though we won't really write like that. And it really is for something longer, and it gives you a little bit more control. It's a little easier to write necessarily. So I just want to give you that information. What I've got here is two examples. In this slide, I'll have subject by subject. The next slide will be point by point. So take a look and see how I'm using them slightly differently. So remember earlier on, I said that subject by subject meant that we would be analyzing topics that are similar but not the same. So they're not the exact same topic. And so in this case, I'm taking a look at, this is paragraph 1. In paragraph 2, the first paragraph is about Pygmalion. The second paragraph is about the custody of the pumpkin. And so in the first paragraph about Pygmalion, I would be talking about something about social class, and that would be my thesis statement. But I'm going to take a look at Pickering, and I'm going to talk about how he gently critiques, Pickering is used to gently critique how the upper class are not aware of the abilities and the potential of the working class. So I'm being a little bit more gentle, and I'm not saying that they're doing it openly or wantingly. In paragraph 2, that's where the difference comes in, because I write that they have no regard. Lord Emsworth has no regard for McAllister, the gardener. And in Pickering, is that they're just not aware of the potential. So there's a certain kind of intentionality. And so you can see that the topics are similar, but they're not the same. And so that's why we would move to subject by subject. And so here we've got an example of the point by point. And so here's my topic sentence. And here I've got some data with the beginnings of a little bit of commentary. But what I've got is I've established that this paragraph will be about moral behavior, strong sense of moral behavior, and working class. And I'm using disrespects, and this is, again, another example of disrespect. So in the rest of the paragraph, what I will go on to do is explain how this is disrespectful and what it means, because there's no development here. But you can see how I'm staying with one point, one idea, and developing it with both. So, I've got this introductory sentence. It says in both texts, so that I'm looking at both at the same time.